Hey, Rob here for Quadratec.com. Bushwacker makes flares for everything from Jeep CJs to Wrangler YJs, TJs, JKs, and even Jeep Cherokees and Grand Cherokees. Now there's multiple styles to choose from, and you can even get some styles painted to match your Jeep. Now not only do they offer great looks, but they provide additional tire coverage for oversized tires, which helps to keep mud and rocks from kicking up on your Jeep, whether you're on or off-road. Now, a few models even allow you to cut some sheet metal away for a larger wheel opening to allow for better articulation and clearance when you're off-road. Now, we recently installed a new set of 33 by 12.5 inch tires on our XJ, and on our last wheeling trip, well, let's just say the need for larger wheel openings became apparent very quickly. So today, we're going to be installing a set of Bushwacker's flat style flares to help us get some flex back in our Cherokee. We'll start by removing our wheels and tires to give us better clearance while working on the flares. After removing the stock flares from the Jeep, we can start taking measurements and marking the fender to begin installing the flare support brackets. We'll make a vertical mark 3 3/4 inches from the front edge of the sheet metal and 6 1/8 inches from the door edge on the top style line and 4 1/2 inches on the lower style line. Then we can secure the inner flare support in the factory holes and align the corner with the marks we just made. Then trace the inner profile and mark the mounting holes to be drilled. Now we can drill out the mounting holes, starting with a pilot hole, then slowly enlarge the holes to 1/4 inch. After making horizontal lines about 1 1/2 inches apart on the rear style line, we can begin trimming the excess metal from the fender. On Cherokee's 96 model year and older, the front lower portion of the fender also needs to be trimmed. Then trim along the profile lines made earlier, and finally cut along the horizontal lines made. Then using pliers, bend each of the newly made sheet metal tabs back. We can also cut off the lower portion of the inner wheel well pinch weld, and then make horizontal cuts like we just did on the fender and hammer the pinch weld flat to the wheel well. It's a good idea to use a flap disc or grinder to clean up any sharp edges after everything's been trimmed. We also need to trim the inner fender liner to fit with the new flares. After wiping down the fender to remove any cutting dust or dirt, we'll tape off the fender and paint everything we just cut to keep it from rusting. While the paint is drying, we can move on to the rear. Start by removing the factory fender flare. Mark the style line closest to the fender edge. This will be used for trimming. Using a cutoff wheel, trim the fender along the style line. Secure the inner fender flare supports in the factory holes, then mark the rest of the mounting holes to be drilled. Then we can trim the rear quarter by making a series of horizontal cuts like we did on the front fender, followed by removing the excess sheet metal along the top edge of the wheel well. Using a hammer or sledge, bend back the sheet metal tabs. Now we can drill out the mounting holes. Start with a pilot hole, then slowly enlarge the holes to 1/4 inch. After masking off the surrounding area, paint the freshly cut sheet metal to protect it from rusting. While the paint is drying, we can move back to the front fender and get the new flare installed. Using the new hardware provided, attach the inner fender flare supports to the fender while reinstalling the inner fender liner at the same time. The flat flare should easily slide over the inner supports. It can be helpful to use an awl or small screwdriver to align the mounting holes in the flare with the inner support. Now once the front flare is on, we can install the inner fender supports on the rear of the Jeep. Then, just like the front, install the flare and secure using the hardware provided. If this is your first time watching, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you'll always be the first to know about all the latest product reviews, how-to videos, and more. Then simply click on that info button to head over to Quadratec.com to find out more information and buy a set of Bushwacker flat style flares for your Jeep today.